Well, round 18 is here, and finally, I'm making some moves in my NRL Supercoach team here. 3 weeks in a row, we've moved from outside the top 10k, and that was a tough slide into the 6,145 with a 1406 this week, which is really, really nice. And the last 2 weeks, I actually haven't made any trades, which is also helpful heading into this one. Heading into this week, we've got Starling and Sandon Smith up top, Terrell May as number 3, Kolomatangi, Katoa, Duncan, and Horsburgh to make 7. We've got Hughes as number 8. What a beautiful score that was, along with Katoa. And Duncan and Katoa, Duncan as well. Those 3 absolutely dominating for me in round 17, which is great because I didn't own them in fantasy, but in Supercoach I was able to benefit nicely. Garrick, Aitken, and Dewey down below there in the wing, in the center wing. And then Teddy, Pap, and Drinkwater. So very, very happy going into this week currently with the 3 best fullbacks available. And, some people may have a Tommy Turbo in this week coming up. But you can see they're the clear 3 best, 89, 82, and 81. Other 3 averages for those guys. And, there's potentially some guys you might want to look at over the next few weeks in Dylan Edwards, in Latrell Mitchell, as, potential options there. You've got Jaden Campbell as a decent 5/8 option, but not a fullback or someone down that you can have down there. You may be sitting with like Lehigh Hopewadi at the moment, and you definitely want to be trying to get those 3 big dogs down below. If you've got Turbo, the 75 was really good, and I think he can score pretty well again. So you would hold, and I don't think selling to get to one of the, spending up to get to one of these guys right now is the correct play, especially with a decent 3-round average of 65 and a way to build his cash up to be able to get one of these other 3 over the next couple of weeks. And with that buy next week could be the right time to do so. And I think he should score pretty well. If we're looking at the center wing guys, this is a situation where I may look to maybe move like a Jesse Ramian on. And the players you might want to look at, Jed Stewart being one of them. Very cheap at 198k. Will make a little bit of cash, but is unlikely to help you too much, apart from being a cash out guy that's under 200k and can help you build to other players. Now, Kane Bradley is the other guy there at 232k with the second row forward center wing duel. So that would be helpful for you there. And should be able to get a decent score, you'd imagine, against the Cows. He did score twice in the last clash that he played in round 7. So that could be helpful for you there. And the reason I'm focusing on the cheapies to begin, guys, is the position overall, right, this week, there's only the few guys, as you can see. Garrick, we know that he can score really well. I've got Aitken and Dewey there. But the rest of the position is not super strong for this week. Now, Karapani, if you didn't buy last week, I feel like at 416, last week was the play the week to get him. And now you're buying him at a mid-range price. And I don't know if you want to buy anyone sort of 400 to 600k that's like just going to do a job for the next few weeks. You want to be buying players that can be top-tier keepers. And you look at this position, and guys like Val Holmes and Lomax come into the frame next week, along with Jacob Kiraz for the run home. If you don't have Farnworth, he's over 900k now, which is incredible. And then you've got players like Lucas, will continue to have a decent rest of the season. Now, Nwangani Tawaze at $633,000, coming off a really good ton a couple of weeks ago, sits there with a 74 average and puts him in the top 10 for scorers here in the position. And now, if you want someone that doesn't have a bye for the rest of the year, that is playing the Tigers this week, that's the upside on Nwangani Tawaze. You could go for some cheaper guys from the same team in Daniel Tupou, who's in the 500s. And we know there's some good stats around the left wingers at the moment, which a few content creators have mentioned already. So that could be a play there. But Mark, I think, has a bigger chance of staying and remaining a keeper for the rest of the season here. I thought that was Jackson Purdue for a sec, but I think Jackson Purdue is in the mid 400s now and could cover in that 5/8 slot, but it's hard to pick someone like that. And you can see here you've got the Beaufort Moors that are going to do a good job. What about Shibasaki? Since we sold him, his 5-round average is 85. It's basically not too not too long after we did sell, kind of around that, the beginning of the buy period time, which is pretty crazy. You also have guys like Connor Tracy, who are coming off a nice 3-round average of 78. The games before that were pretty poor, and you'll have remembered that. Now, a few people asked me about him in fantasy as well, and it just feels like he's on a bit of a run right now, and we know that he can easily head back into the not so good scores very easily. He's that type of player. He doesn't have that clear, locked in gun type of status there. And I think the big focus this week, guys, is having the necessary players. Like, yes, having 14, 15 can be very helpful, but what I'm looking at my side is not potentially buying any of the top guns this week, but if I was to make a trade, it would be like a Ramian down to a Bradley, just to free up some funds to be able to make a couple of trades next week. And I know it's a pretty tough little situation with the Raiders out and also the Bunnies there, and then you get the couple of Eagles players that you have out as well. But the big tough one for me will be that Bunny side, given I've got Duncan as well as Colo and Aiken. A couple of those guys, especially someone like Aiken, will be a sell next week, and you'll have plenty of cash after Duncan's really good score to move on from him as well. And then you're hoping for guys like Tino and Payne Haas to back up as well. So round 19, for me, could be hard to get 17 on the park. So that's where you need to be looking at a few things like that. And trading out of Ramian, yes, it helps me free up some cash, but he does play next week, and that's where you'd be hoping if I bought a Bradley. He's more likely to play next week with Warbrick dealing with some problems, as well as Failonga with his hamstring injury. So hopefully if I was to trade Ramian to help with cash generation and get another number for this week that could do well in Bradley on a right wing that could score nice tries with the Storm against a team that's decimated for Origin outs, that's where that improvement could be for next week. Because we got Lawson out as well. Carraz and Farnworth will return, but we'll lose Aitken and Garrick in that one there. For next week, I believe I'm at about 18 players right now before any trades. If all of my Origin guys back up and we don't have any injuries and anything else next week, given we will only have the 2 trades to be used in round 19. So that's the tough situation and the thoughts on that one. But yeah, the centre wings, there's guys next week you want to target more than this week outside of Nwangani Tawase. Now in 5/8, there are a few at the moment that you can look at, and one of them being Matt Burton. Sitting there at 580k, I think is a really nice price point to jump in at. He has definite upside. He's someone that I started with, and he was higher than this at 640 odd, and I thought that he had the chance to be a 700k player this year. If you're sitting there with Metcalf, I think straight swapping to Burton is a really nice pick this week. And you can see there's not too much else that you would look at with Jackson Purdue, a 467k, not performing well at all with a 30 average, and KO Weeks coming off the ton, which is good for him. But if you got like a Dewey, King Tonga, all these kind of guys, you can just hold steady there, and that'll be enough for you in the 5/8 slot. But Burton's the only real guy to target. For the halfbacks, it's very clearly Jerome Hughes is the guy this week that you would want. But if you have Cleary and Hines, do you bother with those trades? And do you have enough? If you're at over 15 there, I think that you could easily move on from Hines there. He's just performed okay. He's averaging 70 over the last 3, but 65 in the last 5 there. And Hughes is the big upside type of play in this week. Guys like Reynolds, guys like Fogarty, all okay, but aren't super helpful. And the pod type play that has a good number attached to him is DCA at 468k. So if you're interested in him, that could be a fun one as well to save some cash rather than going for Hughes, but you do miss out, unfortunately, on next week. Let's go to the hooker slot. And yeah, Starling's probably the guy this week. You can see here in the averages that Starling's the clear one, and then Sanders Smith next option. So you got guys like Damien Cook that could do all right as next up on the list, but at 542k, if you're going to make a trade in this position, I think you just wait till next week and go Harry Grant, who was only at 594, and then guys like Connor Watson as well at 613k, who has by far the clear best average in the position. Now, front row forward, if you're sitting in my position here, Tino, like he's dropped heaps of cash now, so 573 is not a sell. He was, in hindsight, a very clear sell in the 700s, or maybe even last week if you wanted to do that, but not anymore. Now, options this week, it's Tarpanay as the clear one. Keon Kalmatangi has the dual now, which is nice. So could potentially muck around with that next week if needed as an up and down as to, fill that 17 correctly. But with Taps there, he's just lost a little bit of his mojo with the minutes. So a 612k with the bye next week, I don't rate it highly. Horsburgh I still own. I think he's a very easy hold. You've got guys like Nafahu White at that mid-range price there, which is pretty solid. You got Nelson down there who should be able to do okay again, like you saw with his 61 last week, but it's not too exciting at all in that front row forward slot. And in terms of cheapies, you can look at in the second row forward, especially you can look at guys like Fiketti. You can see there, Eli Katoa is by far the best pick this week. Fiketti there, 380k, doing a really good job in recent history there with the 63 3-round average, and under 400k is a way to potentially drop down or go across from an injured couchman or any guys like that could easily do a solid job for you. But again, in terms of options this week, you've got Katoa and Preston. I think they're both great and they're both very similar prices. If you want the clear, safer 60 odd pick, then Preston's the play. If you want that up and down type scorer, then Katoa is that play there as well. You can see they're both with a very similar 77 5-round average. And then the more wild card type of play that has been having an awesome season, slightly cheaper than Ellie and Preston, is Kickout. So those three there are the clear sort of standout options for this week. And if you wanted to wait till next week or the following one for this position, which is something I might be doing, Angus Crichton then comes on the board there, which you can see here at 584k is a really nice price point there. And then Hoskins, the other mid-range guy that misses next week as well. So looking at options, Kane Bradley can be used up there as well. Aiken, it's been a rough one, isn't it? Buying him, Fantasy and Supercoach. Talister 640 with a 53 average, but 102k gain last week was crazy. So you could definitely jump on him for another week, but at 640 now, it feels a bit crazy, knowing that he can easily go down to a 50, 55, 56 average like we've seen from him the rest of the season. That could easily happen again. So I just think when you're making trades this week, if you're at 13 like myself, you do have to factor in the guys that you're going to want back. I'm going to want back Cleary. I'm going to want an upgrade to an Angus Crichton, potentially get a Preston back, which would be cool. Front row forward, I'm pretty well set with those three guns. Hooker, we could make it one upgrade, I think, if we want to. Next week, we just hope that Sandon Smith's available for my side. 5/8, we're pretty set. Munster and Campbell, which is good. And then centre wings as Lomax, the Valentine Holmes. Those type of guys will be fun upgrades. And that's where the trade out of Ramian, which I'm thinking about, could just work out fine this week as my only option. It adds another scorer for this week. We know he could have some upside if things go right and they smash the Cows. And Thomas Cant's the other one, but he doesn't help me too much. Only netting me that 70-odd thousand. So it's something that I could think of. Cant to Bradley gets the extra little bit of cash, or we go Ramian, who could help me next week, considering I can only make 2 trades, and if there's injuries, I might be in trouble. But an extra, $121,000 that'll go into the bank. So they're the 2 options from my side. What are you thinking in yours this week? And just a quick update on where I was at in my leagues after last week. My big head-to-head comp, I have pushed into second. So a great win there, 1406 versus 1339. So shout out to Pete for that one. I think I'm up against third now in the league. For this one, the JBFA overall group there, which includes everyone, has Ryan, Riley, and Jacob up in the top spot. I don't believe the Scoopman ended up joining that one because he's in a great spot there, along with David. So Scoops 161, David 250, Jaden at 319. So the top 3 guys absolutely clearing away the best right now. Sorry for the voice, guys. Just copped a bit of sickness after the Auckland trip. And then in the Podmasters there, we've got Matthew, Luke in the top 40 there, 27th and 37th, which is great news for them. Scoop, Maxi, Chris, SC in the top 500 there, and I pushed myself up a little bit into 40th, but I think this week with another good run, hopefully, or a decent score, we get some luck with a few of those guys that we can end up in a good spot there in the top 5K after this week would be delightful. And if we can push forward and continue the momentum, that would be great now that we've saved the odd couple of trades. And hopefully after this week, if I'm on, say, 12, there are other people that are pushed to 10 and below, and we have more of an opportunity to push ahead and do some good work. So that's what I'm thinking at the moment. In terms of VCs and Cs, I've got Teddy as captain right now in the second to last match against the Tigers. That's pretty exciting. And then picking, at the moment, I've got Pappenhausen as my VC. And there's no one really else in my team that I'd want to throw it on. It'd be him or Drinkwater. And Garrick is an option, but he's in the last game, so less exciting. So we'll leave it there, guys. That you should be definitely targeting these upside players in that fullback slot. And then you've got the Hughes and Katoas. Duncan, apparently. You could use Terrell May as a potential, captaincy option. But when you've got Teddy there, who's the best in the game for the last few years, and averaging 89 again, he's so good. So you leave it at that, and we leave the Supercoach video at that. Thanks so much, guys, for jumping in, checking all this out, and we'll catch you in the next one.